Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam, Trilokyam Sacharacharam, Tatpadam Darshitam Yena, Tasmai Shri Gurave. Tvameva Mata cha Pita, Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha, Tvameva Vedya Ravinam, Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Tvameva sarvam mama deva deva. Jai Guru. Yada sarvani bhutani pratibandhi stitani cha yatraivo pashamam yanti tasmai satyatmane namaha. So where are we in our text?
Chapter 6, number 12-13.
Chapter 6, verse 12-13.
Should I begin?
Please.
Samanya Brahmana Bhutva Manobhava Nayakila Indava Brahmatam Prapta Manasa Pashya Shaktatam. Indeed, by the contemplation of the mind, the sons of Indu, who were ordinary ones, becoming Brahmanas, attained to the state of Brahma, the creator. See the capability of the mind.
So, this whole chapter is on the power of the mind. It is an essential teaching on Sankalpa, the law of Sankalpa. Any Sankalpa, wish, will, thought, desire, intention, consistently maintained, that's not contradicted or conflicted, tends towards grossification. And so here, Aindava, the sons of Indu, one of the 10 of them, I think we learned last week, they all become, they're almost like Mormons, where you get to be a god of your own universe. So they become all individual Brahma, the creators of all their individual worlds. Does this really happen? It's amazing what the mind is capable of imagining. Now, I think we talked about this a little bit last week. I really like Vidyaranya's take on all this. There are layers of Sankalpa. The first layer is Ishvara's Sankalpa, meaning you as an individual have nothing to do with the speed of light. You have nothing to do with black holes in outer space. Listen carefully. You have very little to do with the objects in your daily life. Then there is the individual's sankalpa. Much of it superimposed upon Ishvara's sankalpa. This is good, this is bad, this is just, this is unjust. I should do this, I shouldn't do that. And at another way of looking at it, to a much greater degree than we think, we participate in, we reenact the creative process of the infinite. All human endeavor starts with a sankalpa. So we, by our own individual will and intention, that is how, to a tremendous degree in the field of human affairs, God works. We have this idea of the total mind. We talked about last week. If you've ever been to a sporting event, so you go to cricket matches in Australia?
No, but football matches.
Football matches. Do you jump up and down and scream and yell and paint your face funny and stuff like that?
People do, yeah.
But you don't.
Not for a long time.
And then they get up Monday morning and they go to work and put on a coat and tie, right?
Yeah.
So they would not, as an individual, be that crazy minded. Put them in a group with an intention, and look at how they behave. So groups of people have a group mind. Mass hysteria. The opposite side, we have this idea, I don't know from where it came, but the slogan, an idea whose time has come. You know, we struggled and struggled and struggled with civil rights in this country until the 60s. And in the mid-60s, it was an idea whose time had come. Everything was able to change. All of this is how sankalpa works in human affairs. So it's not just about, oh, I'm going to become Brahmaji in my own little universe. It's subtler than that. But it's no less a cosmic law. No less a cosmic law. Any thoughts on this? All right, next one.
Section 2. Vitopakyanam, the story of a sensualist.
All right, this is funny.
Manasa bhavyamano hi dehitam yati dehakah. Being contemplated by the mind, the body goes to the state of the embodied. That is, the mind contemplating the body becomes the body itself by identification.
Yes. So in the West, we have this, what they call a Cartesian split, mind, body. I've had people say, well, no, fear's in my body. My mind isn't fearful, but my body is. Yoga says, nonsense. The body is nothing more than a grossified form. Just like the body in your dream is nothing but your mind appearing as a physical body, and to the dreamer it seems as real as this body seems real to you right here now. What the scripture is saying is it's really just vibration held together by thought. And when we say grossified, what we mean is like if you find middle C on the piano, the C that's an octave lower is a grosser vibration. It's a slower vibration. And the next octave down is an even slower vibration. Steam, water, ice. Steam, subtle. Water is grosser. Ice is even grosser. What's the difference between steam, water, and ice? Simply the rate of vibration of the molecules. So also, that's all the gross body is. It is a grossified form of the mind. That's all it is. And it responds to thought, attitude, feeling, deeply rooted beliefs far more than we think. It's interesting if you look at old people, they write their life on their faces. Have you ever noticed that?
Like frowns and expressions. You're talking
Oh,
about?
yes, they get cemented in. And then you look at like a face like Ramana Maharshi. And, oh, what a luminous man. There's this woman, her name is Suzanne Tulin. She's a very well-known Catholic composer. She's one of the Sisters of Mercy. She hangs out at the Mercy Center in Burlingame. And not, a traditionally pretty woman, not classic beauty kind of things. But I was down there once for doing Taizé prayer, and she was in the garden. She was sitting on her bench, and she was deep in meditation. And she was luminous and beautiful. This old lady in her 70s. But she was so close to God. And it just showed in her face. Am I making sense? And it's not about Botox and hair plugs. I'm not talking about that kind of beauty. And antithetically, deeply held resentment, deep fear, deep anger or hurt. We hold on to it, don't process it. That stuff could make us sick. Stuff can make us sick. Any thoughts on this? All right, going on.
Deha bhavanaya mukto deha dharmai na badhyate. Freed from the thought of the body, one is not afflicted by the attributes or the characteristic properties of the body.
So there's two ways to think of this. The first layer, which is what the story is going to be talking about, all of us, I think, have had the experience where, let's say, you've got a cold or you've got an ache or a pain in the body, and you get deeply engrossed in some project, and you forget about the cold or the pain or the ache. Who's had that experience? Mm-hmm. Yeah. You remove the attentive faculty of the mind from the body. How? Through dharana, single-pointed attention on something else. And in the end, knowing that your body is a body of light, fact, it's Brahman. We start changing our ideas of body. But here's, listen carefully, a place where I take a little bit of issue with Adi Shankara. Adi Shankara, in my opinion, slips into flesh hating at times. Oh, the disgusting body, filthy, should be cast off like, awful. There's verses in his work that are like that. Have you come across those, Michael? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I disagree with him. I think he may be going there because his target audience was probably young boys, 16, 17, 18 years of age, with raging hormones. I think it's much healthier to take a neutral view of the body, to see the body as a vehicle. It's like your car. It's like your car. You don't want to be all caught up beautifying it, stuff like that, to feed the ego. But you want to keep it healthy so you can withdraw your attention from it. Health is the greatest wealth, and you don't realize its value till you lose it. Who here has had to deal with a chronic pain or a chronic illness, or one that went on for a long time? Really grabs your attention. Very difficult to do yoga, especially in the beginning, if you've got a lot of chronic pain. It really grabs the attention. It's possible. Thing to know about your body is simple. It's not you. It's just vibration held together by thought. It's far more plastic, malleable than you think within certain limits. Nobody, by doing meditations, can add 6 inches to their height. You may be able to extend the length of your life, couples. But having a body is a sexually transmitted condition, and it's always fatal. It doesn't mean you can't have good health by and large up to the end of your prarabdha. Much of that has to do with attitude. Any thoughts on this? Sometimes prarabdha is such that things from the past lives, we have afflictions, and they do not yield to the tapas of sankalpa. You just have to accept them. All right, next verse.
Indradhyumna iti khyata magadheshu mahipatihi ahalya nama tasyasit bharya kamalalochana indranama vita kaschit tasminneva pure vasat. There was a king known as Yumna among those of the Magadha country. He had a wife by name Ahalya with lotus-like eyes. A sensual person by name Indra lived in the same city.
So now we're telling another story. So we have this king with his lovely wife with lotus-like eyes. But there's this guy Indra who lives there in the city. He's a horn dog. Let's see what happens.
Sahalya Halyaya Sardham Indrasya Yad Bhutapura Tada Kanye Tihasebhya Tasmin Indrain Varajyata. That Ahalya, having heard from legends what happened to Indra in company with Ahalya in the days of yore, became attached to that Indra.
So these are names that come out of Hindu mythology. So based on that, she thinks, ooh, he's pretty studly. Of course, it's only men who are driven by lust. Women never have that condition, I'm sure. Is that right?
No, we don't.
Hmm?
No, no.
Oh, shut. So, anyway, they decide that they got the hots for each other. So let's see what happens. Are you taking notes, all of you young people?
Eva manyonyama bhavamaalokya bhupatihi tavu bhavapi tat yaja durmati sallilashaye. The king, seeing their state of being strongly attached to one another, thus abandoned those two evil-minded persons in a tank or water reservoir.
So she's cheating on her husband. He catches them. So I'll just throw them in a big tank of water. Cool them down a bit. Take a cold shower. Next verse.
Tautu jahas tushtat tautu jahasu tushtauna tautu jahasatus tushtau na kedam upajagbatuhu granthitau jagapadeshu kashabhi tadinavapi jwalabhi dahyamanau cha naputu kamapi vyatham ragnyath prichaya manau tau uchar turma dishash yayau. But those two laughed with satisfaction and did not suffer distress, tied to the legs of elephants and even beaten with whips and being burnt by flames. They did not suffer any pain. Then, being asked by the king, those two of joyous disposition said as follows.
So they keep doing the mufti pufti in the tank, being dragged by elephants, being whipped. Ooh, kinky, aren't they? But so engaged in sneety, doing the mufti pufti. All right, see what the king does.
Eva muktastato raja. Avam khedam na janivo. Jatavanyonya tanmayau. Bhavitam tivra vegena. Manasa yat mahipate. Tadeva pasyatyakhilam. Na sharira vicheshtitam. We too, who have become wholly absorbed in one another, do not know agony. King, whichever is thought of by the mind resolutely, it sees that only in entirety and not the working or sensation of the body.
Yes. So when the mind is totally engaged, especially addictively, the body is ignored. I can't tell you, kids I've worked with, We're like crystal meth addicts. So addicted to the euphoria. Totally trashing their bodies, and when they come down, they ruined their teeth. They've been picking at their skin for days, have sores all over their body, weren't even aware of it until they came down off the job. This is not uncommon. This is not. So, mind and the body, if the mind withdraws its attention, don't feel the pain or the affliction going on.
Evam muktastato raja vacha kamandhayoraphi satyam evati vijnaya tavubhao niravasayat. Then the king, thus told, knowing the words of those two who were blind with passion as only true, drove them away or banished them.
So he wasn't going to separate them. He wasn't going to get his wife back. So he banishes them from the kingdom. The power of the mind. And the subtext of this, if any of us ourselves, or if we know people who've been caught up in addiction, and it can be drugs, it can be alcohol, it can be gambling, it can be work, it can be all sorts of things where I'm convinced this is what I need, this is what I need, this is what I need. I was talking with a fellow that I've been working with, and he's so attached to having what he calls a narrative. He thinks who he is what he does, what he owns, where he lives, his boat, stuff like that. And if he loses this, then he is not a worthwhile or valuable person. And it's to the point where he's really got himself in a lot of financial trouble. Because a lot of it is a house of cards. So there are all sorts of ways we can get caught in this idea of the sensuous. It's not just sex here. It can be all sorts of other things. Any thoughts on this? Going on.
Evam Rama Jagat Yasmin Dvisharira Shariridaha Ekam Manashariram Tu Shikprakari Chalam Sada Akinchit Karamanyaccha Shariram Mansa Nirmitam. Rama. Thus, there are two bodies for the embodied one or the individual soul in this world. One is the mental body, acting quickly and always moving indeed. The other body, made of flesh, is powerless to do anything.
So the sukshma sharira, the subtle body, is the mental body. The stula sharira, the gross body, is fundamentally inert. Can't do anything unless the mind orders it. Withdraw the mind from the body, it breathes. All right, going on.
Section 3. Chittopakyanam, the story of the mind.
This is good.
Tatra kinchid upakyanam chittasya kathayami te asti shunyatavi bhima tasyam eko bhavannaraha. In this connection, I tell you a certain story of the mind. There is a formidable and desolate forest in which there was a man.
There was a fellow in a forest. We'll see what this terrible forest is.
Parya kulamattir bahim sahasra karalochanah praharan atmana prishte swatmana paridhair bhrisham krandan palayamanau sau paditondho the upake. With his mind confused, that fearful one with 1,000 hands and eyes, striking at his back violently with iron bars, by himself, crying and running, fell blindly into a well with a hidden mouth.
So he's got a lot of hands. And what does he do? He picks up iron bars and beats himself. And then he falls into a well with a hidden mouth. Couldn't see it. Very strange fellow going on.
Tata samutitha kale pravishta kantha katavim tata puna vinishkramya swatmanam praharan muhu vidruvan shitalam gatva kadali kananam hasan. Then, getting up from the well in due time, he entered the thorny forest. Then again departing and beating himself often, running and laughing, and having gone to a cool forest of plantain trees.
So he comes out of the well and he wakes up. Beats himself more with the rod. I'm tired of the thorny forest. I'm going to go to the one where there's plantain trees. Yummy, 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 yummy. Let's see what happens there.
Shanat tasmat vinishkramya muhushva praharan swayam vidruta patito bhuya tasminne vandha upake. Departing from that in a moment, beating himself often and running away, he again fell into the same well with the hidden mouth.
Yeah, beating himself off. Kartavya, the struggle. I'll be happy when, it'll be better if. And he falls back into the well. Deep sleep. Thorny forest, miserable situations, plantains, conducive situations, beating himself with the iron rods. Kartavya, more. Makes him a moron. Going on.
Evam rupa nijacharam samalokya chiramaya avashtabhya baladeva muhurtam pratibodhitah. Having seen for a long time that person whose conduct was of such kind, and having held him up by force, he was awakened or instructed by me for a while.
So Vasishtha here sees this fellow and slap a little bit of sense into him. He restrains him and instructs. Let's see what happens.
Rishtascha kimidam kastvam kim mudha paridhavasi iti prishtha sacha praha naham kaschit karomina. He was asked by me, "What is this? Who are you? Why do you run and wane?" Thus asked, he said, "I am nobody. I do nothing."
So what it is the struggling ego. And when the teacher invites us to introvert the attentive faculty and go looking for this thing called a person. I am nothing. I am nobody. I'm fake news. And let's see what happens.
Tvam me shatru tvaya drishto nashtosmiti rurodasa prahasan athatyat yaja swanyang gani samantataha. You are my enemy. Having been seen by you, I am lost. Thus saying, he wept. Then laughing, he gave up his limbs all round.
So the first thing that happens when the ego comes in contact with the Guru, with the teaching, you are my enemy. Cannot tell you how frequently someone asks me what I do. Oh, I teach meditation. And why did they don't? Oh, what's that? A little bit of something. Oh, gee, that sounds interesting. Can I come? Sure. Classes are open to everybody. How much does it cost? Oh, there's no charge. Really? Oh, maybe I'll show up on Sunday. Not. They got an excuse. Oh, I'm getting my nails done that time. I'm not making this up. All sorts of excuses. No blame. At some deep level, the ego knows this spells its death. Now, for some people, this doesn't happen, but for lots, it does. As we go deep into the teaching, we engage in self-inquiry. We begin to see the unreality of the individual. And listen carefully. The unreality of the world. Everything you've ever thought was important, all of our worldly values, shunyata, void, not bad, just vanity, empty, meaningless. At first, the ego is fearful. Who here, having moved forward in the teaching, has entered a grieving period, finding the old ways just don't work, the old desires, the old relationships, it just doesn't have the charge that it used to have. Who's had that? And a very common feeling is grieving. So here, the dude in the forest is the mind, if you haven't figured this out yet. So he weeps. Then when we see the freedom of mature Vairagya, he drops all his limbs, all those vasanas, all those attachments, all those things that he's been using to beat himself with. And he laughs. New found freedom going on.
एवं तस्मिन् महारण्ये बहवः तादृशा नरा परिभ्रमन्त तिष्ठन्ति विद्यतेऽद्यापि साटवी. Thus, in that huge forest, many men like him dwell, wandering about. That forest is there even today.
So the forest is worldly experience, inhabited by the ego. And all of the suffering is self-inflicted. You've heard me use the example. What are you doing, Jim? Oh, I'm hitting myself on the head with a hammer. Why are you doing that? Because it feels so good when I stop. I want this. I want that. Give me this. Give me more. Give me, give me, give me. I need mine, I need mine, I need mine. All self-inflicted. It is never out there. The only thing we need to renounce is the mind itself. Give up Jiva Bhavana, the belief that I'm a person. Give up your belief in the reality of the phenomenal world with its inherent joy-giving or misery-producing properties. Give up struggle. Put down that iron rod. Don't believe me. Believe the scripture. Just try it. Be a spiritual scientist, at least for half an hour. Try giving everything. See how you feel? We will more than gladly refund your misery if you'd like. You can have it back. Get all upset about the world. Knock yourself out. Have one for me. Any thoughts on this? Next one.
Sri Rama Vacha Kasau Mahatavi Brahman Kinvate Kartumadhyataha. Sri Rama said, Sage, what is that green forest and what is it that they are intent on doing?
Oh, so he wants an explanation for the parable. Let's see what Vasishtha says.
Vasishtha Vacha Sansarakye Maharanye Prabhammanti Manansihi Mayatani Vivekena Niyante Paramam Shamam Kanichit Mattiraskarat Narakeshu Patanyatha. Vasishtha said, in this great forest of worldly existence, minds indeed wander about. They are led by me, by discrimination, to supreme tranquility. Some, by disregarding me, fall down into hells.
Yes. So remember, Guru can take three forms. The first is the external human Guru, which Swamiji always called a temporary psychological device. Second form of the Guru, your worldly experience, If you're conscious, if you're woke, pay attention. Notice, what does it feel like to want something you don't have? Or the flip side, aversion, or the neurotic form, I have what I want, but I'm afraid I'm going to lose it. Bhaya, fear. Can you find any other kind of suffering? Own your ananda. Desire, object of desire become one. Pramoda, point of pleasure. A fool thing sits in the forest of the world. The yogi knows, oh, that stopped my mind. Krishna, Krishna. Wow. Then everything in the world becomes a meditation. There is no more fruitful practice than this Sakshiva. Watch your mind. Then you will see the truth or the untruths of the teaching. And once you're convinced of its truth, then your mumukshutva has power. This lights the fire, drives the engine of our sadhana. Any thoughts on this? Next one.
Kadali kananam swarga dukkhabadastu kantakaha nashto smiti yaduktam tat mamataparidevatam. The forest of plantains is heaven. The affliction by sorrow is the thorn. I am lost. Thus what was told is the lamentation of the ego, the feeling of mind.
So, what is swarga? What is heaven? Those are those temporary moments where I hit all the green lights of life. There are many people who foolishly think, oh, I'm connected with God because I'm hitting all the green lights of life. What does it mean when you hit all the green lights of life? I'm simply getting what I want. Don't dress it up. That's always temporary. It may be 2 quarts of punya. It may be 5 quarts of punya. It may be 10 quarts of punya. But just like the gas in the car, the end, tank empty. Back to Manusha Loka. What's Manusha Loka?
Human realm.
Yeah. What's it all about? How come I couldn't stay there? The hell realms, when I get angry because I'm not getting what I want, I live a life that's adharmic. I lie, cheat, and steal, hurt other people. And I descend into deeper and deeper delusion and misery. Both heaven and hell are right here. Aren't they places we go after we die? Maybe. But you and I know lots of people who are in Punyalok, or Naraka, Papalok. But our yoga is done in Manushalok. Any thoughts going on?
So you can only do yoga when you have a stable mind, I suppose, like where you're not suffering intensely.
Well, as long as you're not deluded. If you're in Punyalok, then, oh, look, I'm so smart. I'm so powerful. I have the 401k. I have the big house. I have not only one wife, but I've got two of them. Everything's working. You know, I'm in control here. Do you know people like this?
It's funny. Yesterday, I met a friend who's fairly successful, and we were just having conversations about yoga and stuff like that. And he was like, "That sounds too crazy to me too, because I am too scared of the change it might bring." Because I think he was too attached to like life is very good right now.
Yeah. And then crises come. We have a health crisis. A spouse gets sick. A parent dies. Or something even more important, the stock market crashes. Or the other party gets elected. And I love how the Buddhists frame it. They call it the heaven realms, and then when your punya runs out, you go to the realm of the hungry ghosts. You heard that term?
Mm-hmm.
They have mouths, heads with mouths, but no body. They can't ever get filled up. Constantly consuming, trying to get back to Swarga. And then, of course, you become a total jerk in order to get back to Swarga heaven. So the power of Manushalok is you ask questions. You have mananam. You reason things. You think about it. What I'm doing isn't working. You know, one of the most powerful things I tell people whose lives are a mess. If nothing changes, nothing changes. You cannot continue to do it the way you've been doing it and expect different results. That's crazy. We've all heard the definition of insanity, one of them, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. Yet that's how many people live. I'll just do it harder, faster. Any other thoughts on these the thorn forest and the plantains? All right, going on.
Manasa tyajyato bhogan rodanam sahajam khalu pariprapta vivekasya tyakta sansara sanstitehe chetasa tyajyato rupam anando hasitam bhavet. Crying is indeed natural for the mind while abandoning enjoyments. The joy of the one who has acquired discrimination, who has abandoned his abode or stay in worldly existence, and who is giving up the characteristic of the thinking mind, is the laughter.
I forgot to say what the third form of the guru is, your own deep intuition. External guru, form of a person. 2, your life experience. And then the third, guru's within you. But here, It is normal when you begin to see that freedom comes from getting rid of the addictive tendency of the mind, this tapas. And crying, grieving is normal. But then underneath it is freedom. Real freedom. Wonderful story. Any thoughts? Next one.
Prahara kalpana ghata kriyante swayameva hi sankalpa vasana jalaihi swairevayati bandhanam mano leelamayai bandhe koshakara krimiryatha. The beatings are the blows of fancies or imaginations. They are indeed caused by oneself. The mind is reduced to the state of bondage only by its own net of impressions of thoughts or imaginations, just as the silkworm in the cocoon confines itself by bonds with ease.
Yes. And the word is used here as vasana. This is what binds me. It's the residual of previously performed egoistic actions, involved with I-ness and minus, where I'm convinced that happiness and misery are externally determined. And I spend all my time trying to maximize conducive environments, avoid non-conducive ones. It's hard work, and it never really works. Having a conversation with a friend today, we were talking about one of the ideas that circulates among young people. I've heard people use the term microaggression, and I wasn't sure what it meant. Someone had accused him of a microaggression, so we looked it up. And what where we went with the conversation is a lot of young people are trying to feel safe by calling out the aggressions and microaggressions of the world. You can't say that. I don't feel safe when you do this or say that. Now, there is some worldly truth in that. But if that's a person's view of life, it's a failing strategy. Why? Because we're largely powerless with the behavior of other people. I don't know whether we've come to the story yet this time through. It's in this book. Why try to cover the world in leather when you can wear shoes? I don't think we've come to it yet, have we?
No.
No. Famous remark in Yoga Vasishtha. Foolish person tries to play whack-a-mole with the world. Fix this, fix that, fix this, fix that. I just get it all working right, and it'll be okay. You can't say this, you can't say that. You may know people like that. In this conversation I was having today, he was talking with another friend, and they started to talk about politics, and the friend says, "You can't talk like that around me. It upsets me too much." That's not freedom. It's not freedom. love true story. One of my friends is a Swami by the name of Shivamananda. And he used to have a lot of difficulty with swear words. Really, really would react to the word fuck. Young people, they use it all the time. So you know what he did? Brought out a piece of paper and wrote the word fuck 1,008 times. Till the charge was gone. He couldn't get other people to stop using that word around him. All he could do was let go of his charge about it. By the way, there is an absolutely hysterical YouTube video of Osho lecturing on the word fuck. Have you seen it?
No.
Oh, it's hysterically funny. And because he used to be a professor, and he just approached it with this very professorial kind of way of doing it. It is just side-splittingly funny. I invite you all.
He was a funny guy. I liked some of it.
Yeah. Hmm?
He was very funny.
Yeah. And that doesn't mean we don't work for justice and equal rights and respect for other people. But in the end, we cannot base our peace of mind on the behaviors of other people. It's a failing strategy. It's an inside job. We have the iron bars that we're hitting ourselves with. I have another friend, and they have a manager who manages by intimidation. I happen to think the servant leader is a better management strategy. Have you worked in a corporate environment where you had people managed by intimidation? Yes? No?
Yeah.
And the end result for this fellow is he's having conversations with his manager in his head, not only at work, but even at home. And obsessing about what she's going to say, how he's going to respond, is one of the things that keeps him from being really attentive to the work that needs to be done. So I like this particular exercise. What if it's going to be like this for the rest of eternity? You've got a jerk of a boss. What if you're going to have to live and work with this jerk of a boss just as they are for the rest of eternity? No escape. What are you going to do? Give them the big middle finger in your mind. Let it go. Whatever you say, dear. Inside, you just let it pass through. And then you do your best. You do your work. It's the other slogan, we do our best, let God do the rest. Well, getting upset is not going to improve your work performance. But I find that a very useful meditation. Give up the need for it to be different than it is. Can you be at peace with the way it is right now for the rest of eternity. Then, when you're at peace with it, you can make a choice. Any thoughts on this little exercise? All right. Let's do one more.
एतत्ते कथितं राम चित्तोपाख्यानम् उत्तमं चित्ते नैवेदमालोक्य चित्तत्यागे स्थिरो भव. This excellent story of the mind has been narrated to you. Contemplating on this with your mind itself, be firm or determined in abandoning thoughts.
Yes. So you are not the hapless victim of your thoughts. Remember, the mind is ruled by the law of inertia. Law of inertia, a body in a vacuum at rest or in motion will stay at rest or in motion until energy is applied to change it. If you do nothing, your mind will go down the same rabbit holes over and over and over again. Listen carefully. Talking about it in the beginning can be of some value to become aware of what your interior process is. Beyond that, venting is not effective yoga. I just need to vent. Let yourself out. But what are you doing? Just digging that groove deeper and deeper. This making sense? What we want to do is tapas, which is apply energy to move the mind from one habituated flow of thought into another. Let me give you a very practical example of this. So, in the recovery community, many people come in with gloom and doom as their vision of life. Everything is terrible. My life is terrible. I'm terrified. Economy. One of the assignments we give them is a gratitude list. Okay, every morning I want you to write down 10 things for which you're grateful and text it to me. Why would a gratitude list be a useful spiritual tool? Think.
Thought replacement. Yeah. Thinking more positive instead of negative.
Yes. Changing the habit in the mind. And much of the reason why sadhu sangha is the root cause of liberation, association with the wise. Part of the power of the Lord's Maya. Not so much that I don't have a good memory, but I seem to have an excellent forgettery. So we hear the truth over different stories, different angles, different stuff. It's very simple in the end. Because Maya is very powerful. She gives us a strong forgettery. What you look at, you're going to think about. What you look at repeatedly, you will think about repeatedly. Repeated thought becomes habituated thought. Habituated thought sinks into the unconscious and becomes the law of my life. Look up. Keep the high watch. Behold the divinity that is your essential nature. If you behold the dust you will become. I am nobody. I am a miserable mind. The world is terrible. Somehow you choose. Okay. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om.